All right, we have this question here. It says the Zambian government recently introduced a new minimum wage policy aimed at improving the living standards of question A, section A, the compulsory one. Introduced a new minimum wage policy aimed at improving the living standards of low-income workers, particularly in the manufacturing and agricultural sectors. This policy aims to ensure that workers in these sectors receive fair pay, but it has sparked mixed reactions. Small businesses, especially in the manufacturing sector, are worried about the impact of this change on their operations. The table below shows data from a small manufacturing firm located in Lusaka, employing 10 workers before and after the minimum wage adjustment. Okay, so we have this information here. Okay, the wage per worker 1,500. The minimum wage has been adjusted to 2,000 kwacha. Total workers employed before the minimum wage it was 10 workers, right? After the minimum wage 7 workers. Total output 500 when there were 10 workers. Okay, then after there were 5 workers 450. Okay. This part here I already started the calculations here. It's not part of the question. Okay. This part 3 and part 4. These are just solutions. Okay. So the question reads first calculate the firm's total wage bill before and after the minimum wage adjustment. Okay, this is this part here. We were calculating the wage bill. All right. How much they're paying in wages. Okay. So remember, this company has 10 workers. Each worker is getting paid 1,500. So wage bill 10 multiplied by 1,500 gives us 15,000. Okay. After the minimum wage adjustment, okay, we have 7 workers getting paid 2,000. Okay, so 7 multiplied by 2,000, the wage bill is 14,000 per worker. Okay. Yes. Any questions on the wage bill? That's the 5 marks there. Okay. Yes. Uh-huh. Determine the labor's productivity output per worker in both scenarios. So the output per worker, all right, you're just going to say, okay, number of total output over number of workers. Okay. So when there were 10 workers, the total output was 500. So you say 500 divided by 10. So that is 50 units per worker. Okay. Then when we have 7 workers, our output is 450. So you're going to say 450 divided by 7, 150 units divided by 7, we get 64.28. which we can just say basically 64 units per week. Okay. Any questions? All right. Analyze the impact of the minimum wage increase on the firm's employment level and output. Okay, so colleagues, this is basically what happened. All right. When this minimum wage increased from 1,500 to 2,000, the labor cost became to maintain these 10 workers. This firm couldn't maintain these 10 workers at this new wage. Okay, so the firm had to lay off the workers. Okay, remember this, colleagues. Whenever there's a minimum wage increment, what happens in the labor market? Some workers get laid off. Why? Because labor costs increase for the employers. Okay, so the employers can't maintain the same number of workers. Okay, when their wages increase. So what happens? They have to lay off some workers. It was in yesterday's class where we were also discussing this same minimum wage policy. That whenever government enacts a minimum wage policy, two things happen in the labor market. The supply of labor increases. People get attracted by the new wage rate. But at the same time, the demand of labor reduces because it becomes expensive for a firm to maintain its workers. So what happens is you have a labor surplus in the market. Basically, you have high unemployment now. Okay, unemployment is going to increase. All right. So the first impact of the minimum wage increase is that three workers were laid off. Okay, three workers were laid off in terms of employment. All right. Then in terms of output, output also dropped from 500 units to 450 units. Okay. The output of the company dropped because when you lay off some workers, it means your output will also suffer. Okay, let's say for example you had 100 workers, then you lay off 50 of them. You won't be able to produce the same output that you with 50 workers that you could have produced with 100 workers. Similar with here, this output of 500 units, we can't sustain it because now we've got less workers. So the output gets affected. But there's only one positive thing that happens here. Okay. The output per unit, as we can have seen, it increases. Okay. You can say efficiency increases. In this case here, in this case for this firm, we're not saying that all the time that efficiency can increase. Sometimes it might not increase, other times it can increase. Okay. Yes. So the impact, workers were laid off, three of them. Output dropped. Although I'll send you the official answers where you put explanations with this, but here I'm just giving us so that you know what to talk about in this answer. Then output per unit increased. Okay, output per unit increased. Okay, maybe with those 10 workers, there were few machines, so some workers had to share those machines. Now, since the three have been laid off, maybe now there's more ease with the machines that they're using. So you find each worker can produce more units. Okay. Yes. Any questions on that? Oh, I think I have the answers here. I was typing them down yesterday. But yes, any questions on part B? Yes, so you will say this in your answer here. Labor productivity before, or how is it like? Yeah, impact on employment and output. Employment decreased from 10 workers to 7 workers. All right. Number of jobs lost, 3. Okay. So employment basically decreased by 30%. Okay. 3 over 10, 30% drop in employment. This 30% is just representing the 30 workers. Okay. Uh, the wage increase, there was a 33% wage increment. Okay, you just do that. 2000 minus 500. 2000 minus 1500. Okay, yes. Labor, so here what we're just basically saying is the labor costs increased by 33.3%. Okay. Labor costs increased by 33.3%. Then 3 workers were laid off, meaning employment dropped by 30%. Right. And then also here on the output, okay, output from 500 units to 450 50 units. Output dropped by 50 units. Okay. If you want to find the percentage drop in the output, you just do 500 minus 450 over 500. Okay. New minus old. But yeah, new minus old divided by old. Okay. So 10%. So here's a detailed analysis of what happened. Wages increased by 33.3%. Employment decreased by 30%. Output decreased by 10%. Okay. And the wage bill, the total wage bill, have you seen? Remember, at first they were paying 15,000, now they're paying 14,000. So this bill also decreased by 6.67%. Yes. That's how you answer the question. You include these percent increments and decrements. But overall, these are the main things that happened. Employment dropped, output dropped, the wages per worker increased, and the wage bill dropped for the company. Yes. Discuss the potential benefits and drawbacks of the minimum wage policy from the perspectives of workers and employers. Okay, so we're going to look at how the advantages and disadvantages from the employer side and the worker side. So we start from the workers side. The main advantage the workers have is their salaries increased. That is the main advantage. Salaries increased. Okay. The disadvantage from the workers' point of view is that now some had to be laid off. Okay. So it's a blessing and a curse. Okay. Your salary increases, all right, but now you're on the chopping board to get laid off. Okay. So even those who got laid off, they never even enjoyed the salary increment. They just had it worst. So the benefit is basically to the 7 workers that stayed. To the 7 workers that stayed, the benefit is the salary increased. To the 3 workers that were cut off, The disadvantage is they were unemployed. And another disadvantage is the workload for the remaining seven workers. Okay, because when there were 10, probably work was seamless and easier. Now there are seven, it means the workload might increase for them. So that's a disadvantage to the seven workers that remained. That workload can increase for you now. Since others have gone, so you're getting paid a higher amount, but your workload has now increased. Colleagues, would you like that? You get a higher salary, but now your workload increases. Yes, Mr. Manasseh, would you like that? Madam Tasila, would you like that? Yes, it has to be moderate. Okay. Yes. So benefits to workers, higher income. This is for the seven workers. The income increased by 500 kwacha. Okay. So since their income increased, uh, improved living standards theoretically. Okay. Because even though your income increases by 500 kwacha, in reality, maybe your living they might change a bit. Okay. They might change a bit. Okay. Yes. But yeah, improved living standards. Okay. Reduced poverty. Okay. Better motivation. Okay. Because these workers. Hello. Another question to me? Okay. 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 Uh-huh. Yeah. So better motivation and increased productivity. But I think wait, this increased productivity goes to the employer side because the employer wants the workers to be more productive. So I would say this one will go more to the employer. Okay, these are the benefits to the workers. Drawbacks to the workers, job losses, those three who lost their jobs. Okay, fewer new employment opportunities. When the minimum wage increases, it's not only at one firm, it's at a lot of firms. So you find if your skills are limited to that industry, okay, the employment opportunities will be slimmed down because other firms have done the same. They've laid off some workers. Okay. So it will be hard to go to another firm in the same industry, okay, to enjoy this new minimum wage increment because that other firm has also laid off workers. So they're definitely not hiring any new workers. So fewer new employment opportunities. Okay. Increased workload. As I said, those seven workers might find their workload has increased. Okay. Yes. This one reduction in working hours. Well, this is a benefit. Okay. Yes. Growth of informal employment. So here basically what we're saying is these workers will now have to look for maybe informal jobs or lower paying jobs because their previous job they've been laid off. Okay. And fewer other firms are not hiring. So it means now we have to go and look for maybe informal employment. Okay. Yes. Benefits to the employers, okay, higher worker productivity. Okay. Since we saw the productivity increase from 50 units per worker to 64 units per worker. Okay, so from an employer standard, an employer's point of view, that's a good thing. Okay, that's what you want as an employer: increased productivity. Okay? Yes. Um, this is where I would say the motivated workers also would also add in the motivated workers there, right? Yes. So amongst those seven who've stayed since they're getting a higher salary, they can be motivated. Okay, they can be motivated to work more. Okay. Yes. Lower staff turnover. Workers may stay longer because they are satisfied with their wages. This can reduce the cost of recruiting and training new workers. Okay, so this is talking about workers quitting their jobs. Okay, if your company, your workers used to quit every 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and then now you're paying a better wage, right? You find workers will be inclined to stay. Okay. Because some businesses or some firms, when you employ a new worker, you have to start training them, orienting them. That may cost money and company resources. So you prefer to keep your staff. All right. So with an increased new wage, staff workers may be forced to stay there, and not forced to. Workers will be willing to stay at your job and work there long. Okay. Yes. Improved quality of work. So, yes, this goes with the motivated workers. Okay. Once they get motivated, they start now, you know, being creative. All right. Start finding solutions. Okay. They become more active, solving problems. All right. And that's the boss will benefit from that. Okay. Yes. Better reputation. A firm that pays fair wages may have a good reputation among workers, customers, and the government, which is true, yes. The minimum wage has been increased. Okay. Although, yeah, as a firm, you know that you must pay this. You can't pay lower than this. So, just it's a directive which you must follow. Okay. So, excuse me. When you follow that directive, it gives a good reputation for it. Okay. There are some firms who might not follow the directive. They will get a bad reputation. Okay. Yes, those are the benefits to the employers. Okay. Now the disadvantages. Okay. Higher cost per worker. Right. So basically, the main disadvantage is that with this minimum wage increment, the labor cost has become high, meaning also the cost per worker has also become high. Okay. Yes. Reduced employment, you have to now lay off workers. Okay, because you can't maintain all those workers. So when you lay off these workers, as we saw, output suffered for this company. And when your output suffers, also remember, also your revenue is also going to suffer. All right. Because remember, total revenue, price times quantities produced. So here, since the workers were laid off and output dropped, so you can even find their revenue could have also dropped. Okay, higher prices. Okay, to cover these new higher wage costs, they have to increase prices. And when you increase prices, it's now a battle with you and your customers. Okay, Mhm. Okay. Reduced profits. Okay, yes, they The labor cost is a very big cost for a lot of firms. And when it increases, when that cost increases, not only does it affect revenue, it's also going to affect your profits. Your profits might go down, okay, because now you're producing less. Or if you try to in- increase your price, you find maybe now customers buy less from you. Okay. So you find profits can also drop. Yes. Okay. Risk of business closure. Yes. So sometimes if you can't maintain a sufficient workforce, find your business may need to close. Okay. Maybe for a business to run, you need 50 workers for the different operations you do. Now, if wages increase, you have to lay off workers. When you lay off workers, now you start having inefficiencies within your business now. Because now workers have to do more work. You've got few workers at the office or at the factory. You find your business might even close. In extreme cases. Okay. Don't think it's regular for businesses to close, but there can be cases where the minimum wage it increases and you can't maintain your labor force now, so your business has to close. Yes. Any questions, additions, or subtractions? Recommend two policies that government could implement to mitigate the negative effects of the minimum wage increase on employment. Yes. So when government increases the minimum wage, okay, they know that the backlash is going to come from the firms. So government has to find a way, okay, to nyengelera these firms basically, okay, to keep their workers, not to lay them off. Okay, because you can imagine in the mines, let's say for example, government increases the minimum wage for miners, let's say by 50%. The mine is going to lay off a lot of miners or a lot of workers. Okay, the mine might even might even close, and when it closes, the unemployment levels will increase. Okay, because you can find it's not maybe one mine, since the minimum wage is affecting all mines. So you find majority of them will do the same thing: lay off workers or close. All right. So government has to find ways that they can or policies that they can implement so that these firms, okay, do not lay off workers. Or if they have to lay off workers, at least they still keep some of their old workers so that unemployment levels do not drop. Okay. So, number one, introduce temporary wage subsidies or tax relief. Okay. The government should provide temporary financial support to small manufacturing firms that retain their workers. For example, the government could pay part of the wage increase for a limited period. Okay. Reduce payroll related taxes for small firms. Because at least if they reduce the taxes, at least. So basically, what government can do is try to lower expenses for these firms. This is the logic that's happening here. Since the wage increment is increasing costs or expenses, the government can also find ways now to try to mitigate those costs or expenses. Okay. Give tax allowances to firms that maintain or increase employment. Okay, because remember, tax is also another big thing, okay, which firms wouldn't mind paying less of. Okay, so you can give them tax allowances, all right? And remember, these costs should at least be able to offset the wage increments. Okay, so that at least the frame should be at the same position it was at before, or at least maybe better. It shouldn't be worse off, because if it's worse off, people are getting laid off definitely. Right? Make the support condition on firms not dismissing workers. Okay. Yes. Then number two, government can provide affordable finance, training, and productivity support. Okay. The government should help small manufacturers improve their productivity and reduce production costs. Support can include low interest loans for small manufacturing firms. Okay, so you reduce the borrowing costs so that these firms can borrow. Okay, grants for machinery and improved technology. Okay, so help out these small firms with grants, give them machinery and better technology. Worker training programs, they train the workers so that at least if the cost of the worker increases, at least even their expertise and their training should also be improved somehow, so that at least you're getting the best of both worlds as an employee. Okay, because if the cost of the worker increases but they still remain with their same skills, okay, they still remain with the same capabilities. Okay, it's not nice. But at least if the cost per worker increases and there are training programs to make these workers better skilled, okay, and competent, at least you benefit as a business. Okay. So, like for example, in that exam, in this question here, where there were 10 workers, let's say the 10 workers at that point, they never had skills, or their skills were very low. Then the company remains with 7 workers. Government helps train those 7 workers. Those 7 workers become more competent and better skilled. The small firm will benefit from that. Okay. Management and financial training for business owners. All right. Try to help these business owners work through these new costs. Okay. Reliable and affordable electricity for manufacturers. Yes. That can also be, especially like here in Zambia or Africa overall. If you increase the minimum wage, at least reduce the energy costs that these businesses go through. Okay, so that they don't need to buy the generators. Okay, and those operation costs of running generators, they can go. So that money can be channeled to paying the workers more and retaining them. Yes, but all in all, the whole concept here is that if government is increasing the cost per worker, it should also reduce business costs for the firms, right? So that it comes out balanced. Everyone should come out happy. Any questions?